This is a silver stacker's worst nightmare, and in 2026 it is playing out for real, right now, in shops all across the country. I have watched a lot of strange things happen in the metals world over 35 years, but this one has folks rattled, and for good reason. The thing everybody was praying for finally happened. Silver went to the moon, and that very thing is what set off the trouble. Here is the short version so you know where we are headed. Silver spiked over $50 an ounce, then it kept climbing, and back in January of this year it printed a nominal record up near $121 an ounce before it pulled back down into the 60s. As I sit here talking to you, spot silver is running somewhere around $66 an ounce. Now a price like that should have every stacker grinning ear to ear, and in a lot of ways it is a good thing. But that huge move did something nobody was talking about at the dinner table. It pulled every scrap of alloyed silver in America right out of hiding. I am talking about the sterling flatware in Grandma's china cabinet, the 90% junk dimes and quarters in the coffee can, the old war nickels, the 40% Kennedy halves. When silver was 20 bucks, most of that stuff sat in drawers and safes and nobody bothered. When silver ran up over $100, all of it came marching to the coin shop at once, and that flood is the heart of the nightmare I want to walk you through today. I'm Hank, and I've stacked physical silver and gold for 35 years, through every boom and bust. So if you want to stack the smart way, consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind later. Let me show you exactly how this jam-up started, and what it means for the metal you are holding. So let us talk about the refiners, because that is where the pipe got clogged. When you sell alloyed silver, sterling, or junk coin or scrap, it does not just get resold as is forever. A big chunk of it goes back to a refiner who melts it down, separates the pure silver out of the alloy, and turns it back into clean bars and rounds and blanks. That refining step is the bottleneck. There is only so much capacity in this country to process that material, and it runs at a fairly steady pace no matter what the price does. Now picture what happened this year. The price rockets up. Everybody and their brother hauls in the family silver, all in the same few months. The refiners get slammed with more alloyed metal than they can possibly chew through. They back up for weeks and then for months, and when a refiner is that far behind, they do the only thing they can do. They stop taking in new alloyed material until they work down the pile they already have. They paused buying it. That pause rolls straight downhill to your local shop. A lot of dealers are not refiners themselves. They buy your junk silver and your sterling, and then they turn around and sell it up the chain to the refiner. If the refiner has slammed the window shut, that dealer is stuck holding a bunch of alloyed metal he cannot move. So what does he do? He stops buying it from you. I have seen shops this year flat out tell people they are not purchasing any 90%, any sterling, any scrap, until the refiners open back up. They will still sell you a nice eagle all day long, but they do not want your bag of dimes right now. Here is the part that keeps me up at night, and it is why I call it the nightmare. Right now, a lot of that alloyed silver is still sitting in people's homes because they either could not sell it or did not try. The fear is what happens when the refiners finally catch up and open the window again. The second they say they are buying, all that hoarded alloyed silver that is still stuffed in drawers and safes across the country comes flooding back and all over again, and you get the exact same jam a second time. It is like a dam with too much water behind it. Every time you crack the gate, the pressure just builds right back up. So what does a plain working stacker do about all this? Let me give it to you straight, because there is a clear lesson buried in this mess. Pure, recognizable silver is where you want to be. I am talking about American Silver Eagles, Canadian Maple Leafs, the government-minted stuff that any dealer in the country recognizes on sight and any refiner will take without blinking. That metal stays liquid even in a crunch like this one. In fact, when things get tight, well-known pure coins can actually carry a premium because that is the product everybody trusts and everybody wants. Right now, the Eagles are trading around $10 and up over spot at dealers, and a piece of that premium is exactly this trust I am describing. The alloyed stuff, your 90% and your sterling, is the hard thing to move at the moment. It is not worthless, not by a long shot. The silver in it is still silver. But the buyer for it, the refiner, has stepped away from the table, so the whole chain that turns it back into cash has gone stiff. If your whole stack is junk silver and scrap, you are the one feeling this pinch the hardest. Now, if you do have alloyed silver and you need to sell some, here is the practical way to do it without shooting yourself in the foot. Do not walk into your local shop and try to dump a giant quantity all at one time. That is the worst move you can make in a market like this. A shop that is already gun-shy about alloyed metal is not going to give you a fair shake on a mountain of it. Instead, bring it in small amounts, only as you actually need the money. A little at a time keeps you liquid, keeps the dealer willing to work with you, and keeps you from panic selling the whole pile at the bottom of a bad moment. And this brings me to the biggest lesson of the whole nightmare, the one I want you to carry out of this video. Have a diverse stack and have an exit plan. When you buy a piece of metal, you are not just buying it, you are also taking on the responsibility for how you are going to dispose of it later. Too many folks only think about the buying half. They never once ask themselves how they are going to sell it, who they are going to sell it to, and what happens if that buyer disappears. That is exactly the trap the alloyed silver crowd walked into this year. So mix your stack, hold some recognizable pure coins for liquidity, keep your junk silver in reasonable proportion, and always know your exit before you ever need it. All right, let me shift gears because folks have been sending me a whole pile of good questions this year, and these tie right into everything we just covered. I want to answer them in plain language, one at a time, the same way I would if you were standing in my garage. The first one I get a lot is about bid and ask. People see those two words thrown around, and they get confused about what they mean and whether they should care. So here it is in simple terms. In the big paper market where silver gets priced, an ask is the seller's price. That is the number somebody wants to get for their metal. A bid is the buyer's price. That is the number somebody is willing to pay. The two sides negotiate, and where they meet is the settlement, the price the trade actually happens at. Now for silver, the spread between those two numbers is often tiny. We are talking about 10 cents in a lot of cases. So honestly, for most regular people, you do not need to lose sleep over bid and ask. Just focus on the spot price. Spot is where all the pricing starts. It is the anchor everything else hangs off of, and it is the number that matters for what you are doing. The next question is a fun one, and it is one every prepper eventually asks. In a real breakdown, a barter world where the grid is down and the dollar is not working, who sets the price of silver? How much silver is a can of beans worth? And the honest answer is that it is a negotiation, the exact same bid and ask we just talked about, only now it is happening on a tiny personal, one-on-one level. How much silver you pay for that can of beans depends on one thing above all else: how hungry are you? Supply and demand of whatever happens to be available right there in that moment sets the price. And here is the part that surprises people. In that situation, the fellow holding the scarce food may very well hold all the cards over the fellow holding a big pile of silver. Silver is real money and it holds its value over the long haul. I believe that with everything in me. But if a man is starving, a bag of shiny coins does not fill his belly, and the person with the beans knows it. So do not ever think metal alone makes you bulletproof. It is one piece of the puzzle. Another big worry I hear all the time is, could the government just make it illegal to own gold and silver? Are they going to come confiscate my stack? Let me put your mind at ease on that one because I think it is very unlikely and the history here matters. A lot of folks point back to the 1930s and say gold was made illegal, but that is not quite what happened. Gold was never truly outlawed in the way people imagine. What they put in place were personal limits on how much you could hold, and there was a specific reason for it. Back then, gold physically backed the international monetary system. After a brutal depression, they needed to pull that gold in so they could recapitalize the whole system, and that is what the limits were really about. Now here is why they could not just run that same play today. Gold does not back the dollar anymore. For that old move to even work, gold would have to be priced at tens of thousands of dollars an ounce to recapitalize the system the way it did back then. The math simply does not line up the way it used to, and there is an even simpler reason I am not worried. The United States government is in the gold and silver business. They mint and sell American silver eagles, they sell gold eagles, they sell gold buffaloes, and they make good money doing it. A government that is out there selling bullion to its own people is not about to turn around and outlaw the very thing it is selling. That would be like a store making it illegal to own the product on its own shelves. Even communist China, of all places, mints and sells gold and silver pandas, and they do it for the same reason, because it is profitable. And if things ever did start heading that direction, you would see the warning signs long before anybody knocked on a door. The first thing that would happen is the mints would stop selling bullion to the public. That is your smoke alarm. As long as they are happily selling you eagles and buffaloes, ownership is not going anywhere. Here is a lighter question that comes up more than you would think. The Mexican Libertad, is it a coin or is it a round? People argue about this one. Most folks in the business consider the Libertad a coin, and I am with them. It is made by the Bank of Mexico, it carries a coin legend and a date stamped right on it, and it looks and acts like sovereign money. The one funny wrinkle is that it does not actually list a denomination, no peso value printed on the face. But because of who mints it and how it is presented, with that legend and that date, the general take is that it is a coin, not a private round. It is a beautiful piece too, one of my favorites to hold. Now let us hit the question that ties right back to our nightmare. Is there a real silver shortage looming? Are we about to run out? I want to be careful and honest here, because there is a lot of loose talk on this subject. In the everyday sense, no, there is not a true shortage where you cannot get silver at all. Yes, some specific products get backed up from time to time. Certain rounds, like the Buffalo design, might be a couple of weeks out because the mints are busy. But that is a delivery delay on one product, that is not the shelves going bare. The longer story, though, does lean toward tightness down the road, and here is why. Demand for silver keeps growing, and it is growing in places that use the metal up and never give it back. Batteries, solar panels, electronics, all of that industry eats silver. Meanwhile, the supply coming out of the mines is not going to suddenly explode. You cannot just flip a switch and double mine output. So when you have demand climbing year after year and supply staying roughly flat, the long-term picture points toward more of a shortage over time, not less. That is a real structural thing, and it is worth understanding. But I want to clear up a big misunderstanding while we are here, because it matters for how you think about price. Every one of these giant silver rallies, and I have lived through them, 1980, 2011, and now this one in 2026, every single one of them is driven mostly by investment demand. It is not the industrial use that sends the price screaming higher. Let me say that plainly. It was not the solar panel that put silver near $49, $50 back in the day, and it is not the solar panel driving it now. It is investors, it is people buying silver as a hedge against a debasing dollar, buying it out of fear, buying it because they do not trust the paper anymore. That fear trade, that dollar debasement trade, that is the engine of the big moves. Industrial demand is the slow, steady floor underneath. The rocket fuel is investors piling in. Understand that difference and you will never be fooled by the headlines. Let me get into the weeds on junk silver for a minute, because I promised you plain talk and some folks love the numbers. When people talk about 90% junk silver, they mean those old dimes, quarters, and halves minted in 1964 and before, back when circulating coins were actually 90% silver. Now here is a detail that trips people up. How much actual silver is in a dollar of face value? The industry standard number for circulated coins, the worn ones that actually spent decades rattling around in pockets and registers, is about 0.715 troy ounces of silver per $1 of face value. But a brand new, uncirculated coin that never saw wear holds about 0.7234 troy ounces. So there is a small difference there, and the reason is simple: wear. Over all those years of circulating, a tiny bit of silver literally rubbed off the coins, so the average worn coin weighs a hair less than a fresh one. Now, does that difference matter for you in practice? Not really, and here is why. The wholesalers who move this stuff in volume trade it in $1,000 face value bags, and they buy and sell those bags by the face value, not by weighing out every coin. So at the practical level where you and I actually operate, that little rounding difference between 0.715 and 0.7234 washes out and does not amount to much. It is a good thing to understand, so you are not confused when you see different numbers quoted, but do not let it paralyze you. A $10 face value roll is a $10 face value roll. Here is a quick practical one that folks ask when they are just getting started. If I bring my coins or my inherited silver into a shop, do they charge me to tell me what it is worth? For a reputable shop, an appraisal should be free. That is just part of doing honest business and earning your trust so you come back. Now, some shops do charge by the hour, especially if it is a big complicated collection that takes real time to go through piece by piece. But for a normal walk-in with a box of coins, most shops should not be charging you a dime to look it over and give you a number. If somebody is trying to nickel and dime you just to weigh your silver, that tells you something about who you are dealing with. Let me bring it all the way back around, because after all this talk about the jam up and the shortage and the big price swings, the question I get most is the simplest one. Hank, is it going to dip more? Should I buy right now, or should I wait for a better price? And my answer is always the same, and it has served me well for 35 years. Have a plan, and then work your plan, no matter what the market is doing on any given day. Stop trying to guess the exact bottom. There are always dips. There is always going to be a day when it drops, and you kick yourself for buying yesterday, and there is always a day when it jumps, and you kick yourself for waiting. Nobody times it right consistently, not the pros, not me, not anybody. What actually works is dollar cost averaging. Buy a little bit every single month, rain or shine, high or low. When the price is up, your fixed amount buys a little less. When the price is down, that same money buys a little more, and it all evens out into a fair average over time. You take the emotion and the guesswork clean out of it. Do not sit on the sidelines waiting for the perfect moment, because that perfect moment only shows up clearly in the rearview mirror. Now yes, silver is going to fluctuate, it always has, and it always will. But understand this, right now it is fluctuating at a very high level. We are up in the 60s, we touched over 120 this year. The swings are big because the whole game is being played on a higher field than it used to be. So let me tie the whole thing together for you. The nightmare this year is real, and it is a jam in the pipes, refiners backed up, dealers not buying alloyed silver, and a mountain of sterling and junk still waiting to flood back in the moment the gate opens. But once you understand what is actually happening, it stops being scary and it starts being useful. Hold recognizable pure metal so you stay liquid. Keep your stack diverse. Sell in small amounts as you need to, never all at once in a panic. And above everything else, know your exit plan the day you buy, not the day you are forced to sell. Buy a little every month, ignore the daily drama, and let the long march of supply and demand do its quiet work in your favor. I have watched silver do this dance more times than I can count, and the stackers who come out ahead are never the ones chasing the top or panicking at the bottom. They are the steady ones with a plan and a diverse stack, the folks who understood the game before the trouble showed up. That can be you. Keep it simple, keep it steady, keep it in your own two hands, and you will sleep just fine no matter what the price does tomorrow. That is the smart way to stack, and it is the way that lasts.